Party. Back when I started, that was really the only gateway into the movement. I've been a candidate over a dozen times in state and local races. I've been a ballot access signature gatherer. I've run for the LP presidential and VP nomination, and I've served as an at-large member for 3 terms. I've been very involved in nonprofit libertarian foundations as board members for Heartland. I'm now chairing the International Society for Individual Liberty, and I'm secretary for the Foundation for a Free Society. I'm also the author, as my introducer shared with you, of Healing Our World, and Short Answers to the Tough Questions, both of which are available at the registration desk. And I'm currently working on a book about pharmaceutical regulation, the topic I talked about yesterday. I've been involved with the Ron Paul movement. Actually, I've been involved with Ron Paul for a long time. He's endorsed Healing Our World and my bid for the FDA commissioner position back about 15 years ago, and I appear in the For Liberty film about the Ron Paul revolution. Now, I only mention these things because I want you to take what I say seriously. Obviously, it's up to you whether you want to act on it, but here's my take. My take, after all this experience in so many different facets of the liberty movement, is there is no silver bullet. We keep looking for one, and I just don't think it's there. I think it's going to be a marketplace of ideas and attempts at liberty, all of which will contribute something. And at some point, there may be 1 or 2 that become the fulcrum, the tipping point, but it will not be because those things are out there by their lonesome. It will be because of the foundation that's been built up in a number of areas. And these are the areas I want to talk to you about today. And I'll go through them one by one, so I'm not going to go through this slide now. First of all, let's talk about projects like the Free State. This is the kind of thing we need to be doing, projects, right? And there's a bunch of them. In fact, I'm not listing them all. I'm just putting down some that I'm familiar with. And, seasteading, of course, you may have heard about that, building a platform in the ocean. Blue Seed, which is actually an immigration solution to rent a cruise ship and put would-be entrepreneurs who would like to be immigrants but aren't allowed into the country because there's really no path for an entrepreneur to get in. And this is going to be off the San Francisco Bay with access to Silicon Valley, so it'll probably be mostly the tech industry. It's not in place yet, but it was featured on John Stossel just a couple weeks ago. And of course, economic free zones in a number of countries are being started or attempted to be started, and there's been actually a number of attempts, I'd say half a dozen serious attempts to start new countries. Anywhere from a coral reef in the ocean to buying a piece of land from an established country. But they've all kind of gone down because the statist regimes have decided that they didn't want that no matter what. So, we need projects, and Free State is doing their thing, and I think that's a wonderful addition to this portfolio of things that we need to succeed. Now, I want to talk about the Libertarian Party. I have spent a lot of time there. It used to be the only gateway into the movement back when I started in the early 80s. That is thankfully no longer the case. And I say thankfully because I fear that the Libertarian Party has, in my opinion, gone astray a little bit. We are trying to soft sell the message oftentimes. I just don't think that that's appropriate. I mean, Ron Paul activated a lot of the youth by having a pretty hardcore message. Now is the time to step forward and be radical. If we soft sell the message, people are going to say, well, why shouldn't we just vote for Ron Paul Republicans instead of Libertarian Party members? It makes no logical sense to soft sell at this time. You know, in the 80s when I started, we didn't have all these studies to back us up. So when we went and we said, that the drug war was a bad thing and it was immoral, we didn't have the statistics to show that it kills more people than the drugs themselves. Now we have all this wonderful data. There's just no excuse to soft sell the message. And I think the Libertarian Party has gotten so focused on winning office that they've missed the winning hearts and minds part. And I think that that's going to hurt us. And And part of the reason it's going to hurt us is I'm not sure that we can easily win office because I believe that the wasted vote syndrome is much more severe than we ever thought it was. In 2008, Ron Paul was the only Liberty candidate. I shouldn't say only third-party candidate. That's actually not accurate. He was the only Liberty candidate on the ballot in Louisiana, and that's because the LP didn't get their signatures in on time. So there was no competition. If you wanted to vote for Liberty, Ron Paul was the only one. And he was first or second in the Republican primary there. So he should have gotten a lot of votes. Instead, he only got 0.5%, which is the same amount he got as our 1988 presidential candidate, and about the same amount that the LP presidential candidate got that year. In other words, even Ron Paul supporters, who generally tend to be very fervent, voted for the lesser of two evils if they felt their candidate couldn't win. This was a big blow to see this because the wasted vote syndrome is much bigger, I think, than we had anticipated. Now,